Closed captioning for Insight is made possible by the generous donations of Miracle Channel's legacy builder partners.
And welcome to Insight. I'm Paul Arthur. Very important show today. I really do mean that. We're going to talk about parental rights, and we've done this a number of times this year, and it's just one of those issues that doesn't seem to go away. And I think it is just one of those battles we need to win. So I want you to watch this program and invite your neighbors, friends to watch as well. Maybe watch it on the rebroadcast tonight if they're working today and so forth. But let me ask you, who should be making educational choices for our kids? Okay. Now, some may argue, well, it's the government's their job, or maybe it's the school board's job, or maybe it's the teachers' union, that sort of thing. Or here's a wild concept. Should it be parents? Just saying, maybe we should have a say in this as well. Okay, especially when it comes to very sensitive subject matter as sex ed and so forth, faith, morality. These are important issues. So who has the final say in this? Should it be, again, as mentioned, some of these other groups, government, et cetera, or do parents have a voice in this? Now, part of this deals with transgenderism, the GSAs, gay straight alliances, these clubs that are starting up in schools and so forth. We're going to chat about that today and get informed on what's actually going on, specifically here in Alberta. But this is happening in pretty much every province, I think, in Canada at this point to varying degrees as well. Okay? Our guests today in studio are Donna Trimble. She's the Executive Director of Parents for Choice in Education. Donna, good to have you here again. Donna's website is parentchoice.ca. Don't do the plural, parents, simply parentchoice.ca, and you'll get to the right website. Otherwise, it takes you to Walmart, I think. So, all right. And Teresa Ng is also with us. Now, Teresa is a former teacher herself, and she's a blogger. Her website is informedalbertans.wordpress.com. So again, informedalbertans.wordpress.com. Both of these are very excellent websites. It'll get you up to date in a hurry on what's going on. Good to have you with us, gals. First of all, tell us a little bit about Parents for Choice in education. Now, first of all, you're not a religious group per se. You do have a lot of faith-based support from various religious groups, actually. Right. But you also have non-faith people behind you as well.
Absolutely. We're. I don't like to say that we're non-religious. We're simply parent choice oriented. So wherever a parent stands within their own families and within their own homes, whether that's secular or some sort of faith-based, we support the right of parents to provide an education that is in cohesion with their particular stance within their own homes. And we're really a broad-reaching umbrella organization that believes in quality education in Alberta. And we believe that that depends upon maximum choice for parents, because parents know their own children and what their children need.
Right.
So if we want schools to be high quality, we need to be listening to what parents know their children need in schools.
For sure. And your sense here, what you have observed here is that there's a trend to undermine parental authority, and there's a stream of thought there that government knows better, teachers know better, and we're not saying that all teachers are thinking that way. There's many good teachers there as well, but there's a battle going on here for our children as well. Now, Teresa, again, tell us about Informed Albertans. It's a blog, essentially, right?
Yeah, I started the blog originally to address concerns with the Alberta Education's Guidelines to Best Practices last January. And then I had expected actually to kind of the deadline for those policies that were supposed to be submitted was the end of March. And so I just thought, it'll just be the short-term thing, and I'll just inform people about the progress of what's happening, and then that'll be it. Unbeknownst to me, there's been a lot of things that have happened after March that that I felt required me to continue to inform people. And it's just continued to snowball, continue to expand. The concerns have continued to grow. All these questions are still not being answered. And there's been so much that continues to happen. So I just continue to feel compelled to inform people, this is what's happening, this is what you can
Yeah.
do, and this is why it's important to understand.
Well, I'm so glad you're both doing something here, letting people know. Otherwise, we wouldn't know. Let me take a case in point here. Back in March, this is, I think just mid-March here, you broke the news. And a number of news outlets picked it up here about Alberta Education and their government GSA website, I think. Now, again, this is directed at school kids, kindergarten to grade 12, right?
Yeah.
So age 5 and up. And there were some links that you discovered there that, in just a couple of clicks, took you to sexually graphic websites. I looked at some of these. They are in your face. Yeah. I mean, I do not want my kids anywhere near that. And that was the reaction from parents everywhere, I think. And in fact, I think by the next day, well, what happened? I mean, I think they removed them, right?
Yeah, so basically, I was poking around the GSA, Alberta GSA network, trying to really understand what they've positioned themselves as being the expert authority in the province when it comes to how to operate these gay-straight alliances. So I really wanted to understand what exactly are they promoting. And so I was looking around and I found this community support section. And it listed, I think there were 66 different community supports across the province that this website claimed could help you, meaning the child, the K-12 child, with their GSA. So I immediately went to one called Fruit Loop because I remembered that from Christopher Wells posting it on his Facebook. Having some sexually graphic images, and I thought, oh, it's a name of a child's cereal, so why wouldn't children,
Right.
click on it? And it went to a Facebook page that had these articles, including BDSM. That
So
was
again,
one
this is
click.
bondage, sadomasochism.
Yes, I
masochism, yeah.
saw images within that article of actual images of men, naked men, being tied up, being flogged. It was like I was so distressed, and I checked on a couple, and I couldn't sleep. Like I literally could not sleep
Yeah.
after I found that material. So I did what I usually do. I processed it by writing about it, by screen capturing it, and then
Yep.
a couple weeks after, then released that publicly on March 13th in the evening. And by the following day, March 14th, by noon, 16 of those, or 18 of them were removed. So that's 27% of the links were removed. 3 weeks later, all of that was removed. That entire section of community supports had been removed.
Well, thank God you did something about that, and at least it, takes it away, that access away to some degree,
To some degree,
from the kids here. I understand that on some of these sites, kids were being advised to pay for porn,
There was-
visit a group masturbation night at your local sex club. You know, our students don't
was-
need to hear about that. I mean, I understand the older kids already know about the stuff, but this is, again, available to all students, right?
Well,
and again,
and
this is a
yeah.
government website, essentially,
It-
that's linking them to this,
Exactly, and that's the difference.
which
right?
raises some questions.
It does, and that's the difference being, yes, I mean, children can type in whatever they want into Google, but when you have a website that's being recommended by Alberta Education, that's being funded by Alberta Education, and these are the experts that we are supposed to trust with the care of our children, and they are linking to this material, that raises some huge concerns about trust.
Okay.
And
So how did the government respond to this then? Alberta Education Minister David Eggen, did he,
Well, he's sa-
apologize for this? I mean, what was his response?
People are now getting because of course we engage parents and we ask them to write letters, and people have, and I receive often, and I did receive one myself because I wrote a letter. He's saying several things, and he's not being entirely honest. One thing that he says in the letter that he's sending to parents is that, well, the link has been removed.
The singular link.
Singular link. He's not admitting to the fact that there was an entire section, the entire section of community supports had to be removed. That isn't an oversight. That was a definitive choice on the part of the developers
Trying
of
to minimize
this.
the...
Yeah, minimizing. The other thing that he will say, and I want parents to be aware, is he will say, well, it was a one-time grant that Alberta Education has provided to the Alberta GSA network. But the bottom line is the Alberta GSA network is still advertised on the government Alberta Education website. The Alberta GSA network is advertised in material being provided not in clubs, but in classrooms through a program called Firefly in the Classroom, in schools, Firefly in schools. And the material, although it has been removed from the website, we have had communications with some trustees that have informed us that some of the material that was removed is still available to facilitators of these clubs to provide in private, when appropriate, to children based on what they're asking for in these child-led clubs. So the bottom line is that this particular network is still very much in our schools, even if the ministry says, well, we're not going to give them any more money. They're giving them a space within our schools. And what we need to ask is, why are we giving this authority to the Institute for Sexual Minority Studies and Services that developed this particular network? Why have they not been severed? If anyone else had done this...
Okay, so this is the group that actually, again, had the links up then on the site.
They're the ones that developed the network.
Okay.
Right? They also had
So
their hands...
So they're the ones who were overseeing this gaffe here, okay, that the government went, oops, yeah, those links are inappropriate.
And there's been no apology.
So basically, the ISMSS is paid by the Alberta government, right, to organize this GSA network, if I understand that correctly. And you're saying removing the links doesn't actually solve the problem because essentially the government is entrusting this group with authority over our K-12 education system in this particular area when it comes to gay-straight alliances, right? So you're saying you'd like to see the ISMSS removed from involvement in this?
Any consultation.
Yes. Basically, I say to people two things. One thing is the problem is not the site, it's the source. Right? So you can have this very superficial solution of removing some links, but as Donna said, these same individuals are still doing in-school presentations. They're still doing teacher training. They're still doing professional development sessions. They're still providing resources and research. And the other thing I would say is I made a video actually talking about this thing. It's on my blog. There's a tab that
so
says...
again, this is informedalbertans.wordpress.com. So informedalbertans.wordpress.com. Do check it out. It's a very interesting video.
Yeah, and I made a tab specially about this subject called Sexually Graphic Material, What You Can Do. It's right at the top. And if you click on that, I made a video explaining why removing links is not enough. And I used the example of a babysitter. So when you have a babysitter come into your home to watch your children and you find out that babysitter provided sexually graphic material to your children while you were not there, you would not then... there would be consequences.
You continue hiring that babysitter, wouldn't you?
You wouldn't continue to have that same individual come into your home and care for your children. There's been a severe violation of trust.
Absolutely.
And because of that, there's consequences. And that's not called being hateful or anything. That's called being responsible for our children. And we need to understand that this is a question of authority and trust. Who are we entrusting our children to?
That's a very good point. That's a legitimate point. So this group here, do we just let them off the hook and say, oh, that's okay, it was an oops? Or do we say, no, these are our kids, and we don't want you, being an oversight over our children? I guess that's the message we need to send here. Very interesting. Again, the Institute for Sexual Minority Studies and Services.
And I would like to add that this particular institute is one of the biggest megaphones asking for the circumvention of parents in schools around these particular clubs. So not only have they provided this incredibly egregious material, they've broken the public trust, but they don't want parents to be aware that children are in schools, in these clubs, accessing materials provided by them. And that is a really scary situation, I think, for parents in schools. Our question would be, if you've got nothing to hide, why are parents not being informed, very good and loving parents not being informed that their children are accessing these clubs and these materials that we should be able to see? Not only that, what many people are unaware of is if you go to the Alberta GSA network, there's a sign-up form on that network. And that sign-up form is for children from K to 12, no age limit, to go on and register their school club, GSA or a GSA by another name, directly on the GSA network to access the facilitators and the materials of ISMS. They require no school authority permission, none. They require no parental awareness or permission. They literally go on and register completely on their own with their clubs to this particular network. So this is an authority. What happened with Bill 10 was that which became School Act, Section 16.1, is that all the natural authorities were stripped away. The principals, the teachers, the parents were no longer being engaged in these clubs, right? And that created a massive vacuum. And into that vacuum is pouring things and resources like the Alberta GSA
Well, it makes
network.
me wonder, and again, I mean, I wouldn't want to accuse anybody because, I mean, I just don't know. But are there some of these groups, are they perpetrators in one sense? Are they looking for, and you hear about abuse situations that happen with kids. Does that leave the kids vulnerable to that? I don't know. It's a possibility, right? Again, no accusations here. I'm just saying, hey, you know what? As parents, we need to be concerned. Does this leave our kids vulnerable to somebody, maybe even within the groups, having access to our kids, right? I was just reading it the other day about, Facebook. Hey, your kids' pictures, are being used by, child, pedophiles out there, right? So hey, no accusations here. I'm just saying, wisdom says, parents need to be involved in this, right?
And after Teresa informed us of what was happening, that she's an incredible investigator, I'm so appreciative that she found this material. The very next day, we released a news release. And we have actually asked for a formal police investigation on this issue.
Wow, okay.
Not because we think there's anybody out there in schools that are going after children, but just providing this material to children crosses boundaries in sections 152 and 153 of the Criminal Code, and those pertain to counseling minors on how to engage in sexual activity, including the touching of one's own body or the body of another person for a sexual purpose. This material very clearly violates that boundary, and so we have asked for an investigation. It is in the hands of the Edmonton Police and the RCMP. We have file numbers on that, and we're waiting information from those legal criminal authorities, because we, as parents, we not only have to demand that we are brought back into schools and into the care of our children, because obviously the resources and support network are not safe for our children as far as I'm concerned, and we should be involved anyways. But we also need to know, where are the boundaries? Because we have a curriculum rewrite happening in the province of Alberta right now.
You know what, I'm glad you mentioned that, because, okay, their whole school curriculum is being rewritten.
Yes.
Okay, a different flavor of government, of course, now. Be that whatever it may be, but how much influence do we have as parents in this, and who's actually doing the rewrite? So I guess one of my questions is a group like the ISMSS that we've just been discussing here, are they involved in this school rewrite? If they are, I've got some concerns considering what I've just seen.
Yeah, and that's actually one of our questions that we would like answers to. We would like the public assurances of the Minister of Education to know, when it comes to the curriculum or even the resources that are being written for this curriculum, the research that this curriculum is being based on, who are the expert authorities that the government is entrusting to. And actually, I started, as part of that video that I have on my blog, I'm asking people to participate in a letter writing campaign, asking them to send me letters that I can, it's addressed to the Minister of Education, asking those questions, but send them to me instead, so that I can physically show the number of people who are...
So it doesn't get manipulated
so it doesn't
on the other side.
Or ignored or dismissed.
Or ignored,
So that I can take those box loads of letters and I can say, Minister Egan, these people need answers. They need public assurances about all of these other ways that these same individuals could be providing
So has the government responded? Have they given you any answers as to who is actually doing the curriculum rewrite? I mean, that shouldn't be a secret.
They have not verified what they basically.
Come on.
ISMS is already in the schools.
Why would they not tell you?
No, they will not. It's a completely secretive. They say that they don't want individuals to be politically targeted, but our response would be...
When you get involved in politics, you got to have some thick skin. You are going to get targeted. Duh. I mean, hello.
This is what they're saying, but the bottom line is, if they have nothing to hide, why can we not know who the experts are on the expert working groups for the curriculum rewrite in all subjects?
Well, parents should know.
In all subjects. So mathematics has been a real failure. I mean, it's one of the portfolios we fight on is the right to choose the type of curriculum you use for your children in all
even
of the
something
subjects.
that might be considered moral, like math. we as parents need to know who's doing the rewrite.
There's been a significant
Absolutely.
drop in outcomes because of the failure of discovering math in this province. Why can't we know who's now rewriting the math curriculum for us
Okay,
from
yeah,
K
this
to
is
12?
really, really
So-
key. Okay, so you've got 3 things. And again, I want to put a plug in for both websites here. Parentchoice.ca, as well as informedalbertans.wordpress.com. If we can get both of those up on the screen, that would be awesome, because you've got 3 things you want people to do here. One is a petition you've got, and this apparently signing this petition, it basically asks a simple question related to the secrecy that you've just been talking about the rewrite here. You know, so you're asking the education minister, will you assure Alberta parents and taxpayers that ISMSS, along with any associated staff and directors, are no longer involved in any capacity with the K-12 curriculum rewrite or the provision of resources, research, or teacher training that is being funded by the Alberta government. So I think very well worded there, it's good. And then you say the next thing is to follow up with actually writing a letter, but don't send it directly to the government, send it to you, and again, your website has your address there, and then you will make photocopies and send them in turn not just to the government Alberta Education Minister, but also to the opposition leaders or their education critics, whatever it is. So everybody has a copy. We're all up to date. Nobody's hiding anything. And we can say,
Exactly.
here's what parents are concerned about. Very important. And then, actually, this is really key. Third is tell others. You're saying pass this on. In fact, on your website, you have a 1-page summary, very concise, print it off, hand it out at your churches, I don't know, whatever, your soccer team, wherever parents get together, okay, your community groups, etc., and say, parents, did you know about this? A lot of parents don't know. If they did know, I think they would say, yes, I can take 20 minutes and do this today. And that's often the case, is you're watching this, do it right after the show. Just go, okay, I've got 20 minutes, I can do this.
Yeah, yeah, and it with that letter, just maximum 1 page, short, sweet, to the point. It can just be even 1 or 2 paragraphs. Just have that piece of paper, that visual piece of paper is so important because it can't be hidden, right?
Right.
And then I have my P.O. box on there to send it to me. And it is time sensitive. I'm asking for them by mid-May because I would like to have this issue dealt with as soon as possible. So I like how you said that right after the show. Take that 20 minutes. Don't put it off.
And put it up on your social media pages, you know, Facebook or whatever you use.
Share it.
Right?
Because I think that informing others is really important because there really has been an attempt to suppress this information from getting into the hands of parents. Actually, 3 days after my blog, that March 13th, that I published that, I found out that the domains, I mean, because I just run, I mean, I'm a volunteer, I just have this free blog, right? I found out that the domains for informedalbertans.ca and .com were actually purchased, and they direct people to Alberta Education's What is a GSA website. So if people actually just Google Informed Albertans, or just say informedalbertans.ca or .com, there's been an active attempt to suppress my information to redirect people to the Alberta Education website, which tells me this is very important. This is even
Does it
more
ever?
important.
Just 3 days after.
Just 3
I'm
days
quite
after that.
concerned.
And so please do. I mean, your viewers, I really, it's so important to tell people
Well,
about
I know
it.
people are very concerned about this. And in fact, one of the people who works here at the station said, I think the last time you were on, you guys had the most downloads of that show afterward. People were telling their friends about it. So people were downloading the show on our website,
good.
miraclechannel.ca, and watching the show again, saying, hey, you got to watch this. You got to find out what's going on.
Good.
So people are concerned. And I think you said you had 50,000 people watching your video afterward or something like that? Or?
The original blog article that I wrote March 13th, I've had almost 50,000 views, and it went in 48 hours. It was shared over Facebook over 6,000 times. So that tells us there is tremendous concern. And now what we need to do is we need to take that concern. I need those 1-page letters so I can physically show that people need answers. And we again, like I said before, it's the source, not the site. So these superficial changes about removing links is not enough to address the core foundation problem of who are we putting in authority over our children.
Well, we have a chance to speak up here in Canada and in Alberta. It's just a matter of will we actually take the time and the effort to do that, and again, you can do it in 20 minutes. So, got to take a break here. Again, our guests, Donna Trimble and Teresa Ng. I'm going to show a video clip on the other side of this break as well. All right, so stay tuned for that. It'll give you a good picture of what's going on in our schools here. So 1-888-816-2545, anywhere in Canada. I'd like to hear, are you concerned as a grandparent or as a parent when it comes to gay-straight alliances and so forth, gender identity, and schools usurping parental authority? It seems to be happening. So your calls, your emails, right after this short break. Insight continuing. Great conversation so far on parental rights being undermined by government authorities, as well as certain school boards and perhaps teachers' unions. All right, like to hear your thoughts on that. Are you concerned about what your grandkids are being taught in our school system, especially when it comes to morality and sex education? Of course, we're talking about gay-straight alliances, the GSAs, and gender identity. That's another huge issue in our school system as well. Kids are sometimes being encouraged to question their gender identity, even in elementary school. Are you really a girl? Are you really a boy? Maybe you're not. That sort of thing is happening in our schools to some extent. And, are you okay with that? Some schools making locker rooms and washrooms accessible by, whatever gender you feel like that day. Self-identification is the key there, right? So, and all of that done without parental authority and permission. So I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that. 1-888-816-2545, anywhere in Canada. I'd like to hear your concerns. I'd like to hear what's going on in your school, where your kids or grandkids attend. And your emails also welcome, insight@miraclechannel.ca. And you know what? If you're from the other side of where I'm arguing from and you disagree, you're welcome to join the conversation as well. I don't mind that. I'd love to hear where you're coming from. From my perspective, I'm going, this just doesn't seem to make sense. I understand people have different views on some of these issues, but shouldn't parents have the right to know and have a say ultimately for their own kids when it comes to these kinds of issues here? So again, our guests today, Donna Trimble. She's the Executive Director of Parents for Choice in Education. Her website, parentchoice.ca. And also Teresa Ng. She's a former teacher and a blogger. Her website is informedalbertans.wordpress.com. So informedalbertans.wordpress.com, and that's where you can get onto some of the petitions we're talking about today as well. We have a chance to make a difference here. And again, if you're just tuning in, again in March, Teresa made it public, and news outlets did pick up on it. Alberta Education's website linked essentially the couple of clicks for kids kindergarten to grade 12, and they had access to very sexually explicit, sexually graphic websites. Just like that. And thankfully, the government did take them down after being, outed, if I can use that word, by Teresa. We found out what's going on there and said, hey, this isn't appropriate. And they agreed, thankfully, and took it off. But if that concerned parent hadn't done that, it would still be there, likely. Okay? And that, of course, raises questions as to, well, who is the government entrusting to oversee that? And there's been no official apology, as far as I know, from the government on this. And it looks like the same group, the responsible for including those sexually graphic links, is still involved with the government, with the gay-straight alliances, with the education system, potentially even helping rewrite the curriculum as we speak. So that should be, I think, of some concern to us as parents. What do we do about this? Okay, so this is serious stuff as far as I'm concerned. Now, I want to maybe before I forget, I did promise to show this clip here. It's a nice, like a sort of like a cartoon sort of a clip, but it gives you an idea of some of the things going on in our school system here in Alberta, and very likely in your school system in the various provinces across the country. And so stuff that's going on that maybe as parents we're not aware of, but we need to be aware of. Let's take a look at that clip right now.
Alberta parents, your child's school may be keeping secrets from you. Why? Because provincial law and new school policies say they can. You think gender identity and sexual orientation are sex ed and parents can opt out. Wrong. These topics are now inclusive education and human rights, and some teachers are encouraged to integrate these across the curriculum. no age restrictions. No parent consent or notification required. You think, when my child is in distress, I'll be told. Wrong. If your child is upset or confused about their sexuality or gender, they may be provided private counseling from staff and peer support clubs. No parent consent or notification required. Do you want back into your children's lives in school? Parental consent is the key. Speak up and demand that parents need to know.
All right. I encourage you to check out some of those websites and get informed on this. Surprising, isn't it, what's happening in our school system here? Love to hear from you. 1-888-816-2545. Lines open right now. Do we give a rip about this as parents? I hope so. All right, we can make a difference here. Your email is also welcome, insight@miraclechannel.ca. Again, Teresa Ing with us and Donna Trimble. By the way, when it comes to parental notification on some of these things, you do have something on your website called a parent request for notification. Is that on your website?
It's on the Parents for Choice in Education
Okay,
website.
so what does this do?
Well, I would suggest, I would want to start by saying that any parent that is concerned or guardian, just go to our website, because we've shifted a lot of the actions that you can take right to the homepage.
Okay.
One of those is the form that you're talking about. That form is not legally binding, but it has a set of requests for when the parent demands that the school inform them that something is happening with their children in school. And that would include certain types of lessons and curriculum around sex education or sexual orientation, clubs, counseling, these sorts of things. That is an opportunity. There's a place that you can sign. You can bring that form into your school and ask that the principal or authorities in the school sign that. And it's an opportunity to facilitate a conversation, because it depends on the school, at least at this point, what's happening in your school. Some schools are being very open and very respectful of the importance of the parent-child bond, and others are doing entirely the opposite,
Wow.
right? So this is an opportunity for you as a parent to really know what's happening in your particular school and to demand that you be informed. And if you're not being informed, to make different choices for your children.
Okay,
And
so-
we need to do that as a grassroots organization.
Yeah.
That's all we are
Okay.
at Parents for Choice. We're parents, concerned parents.
So this letter basically will say, hey, please
Yeah,
let
let's have
me
a
know.
conversation here. And if they say, no,
Okay.
can't do it, school board policies for our school board won't allow it, even though that is at this point not in law, then I think you need to, if you're really concerned, think about why your child is
You
in that
need to talk
facility.
to
We
your
need to
school
ask
board then.
questions.
Okay.
Who are the authorities if not us, right?
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense here. Okay, so the parent request for
And then there's
notification.
also the Parental Choice is Key campaign, which you can go onto our website, you can sign an open letter,
Yeah.
and that open letter will automatically email off to Minister Egan, the leaders of the
Yep.
NDP, the PC, and the Wild Rose Party, as well as the New Education Critic,
Okay.
and who is Leela Ahir, MLA Leela Ahir. out
Right,
of
with the Wild
Justin,
Rose,
yeah,
right?
With the
Okay.
Wild Rose. She's the
Okay.
education critic. So they'll all get that, and that is very similar to the notification form
yeah,
saying,
yeah.
don't allow this to continue to happen.
Well, this has been part of the conversation here. It does deal some with politics, okay? And I'm not here to promote one party over another. The NDP is in power right now. Did I have great things to say about the progressive conservative government before that? Well, probably not. So I've got some criticism for probably all the groups, right? But essentially, as parents, we want the best happening for our kids in the education system. So we need to speak up here to all the various political parties. What happened was there's a bit of a media war here a few weeks ago, and I mentioned it on this program as well. And that is Jason Kenney, who's the new Alberta Progressive Conservative leader, wants to unite the right, if you will, wants to unite with the Wild Rose Party, get a new Conservative Party going. Now, he said, okay, he thinks parents have a right to know what's going on with their kids in the schools unless the parents are abusive. And this deals with if your child joins a GSA, a Gay Straight Alliance, should parents be notified about this? The response from Alberta Education Minister David Egan was that this revealed Kenney's extremist views. Okay, and I know Brian Jean was also taken to task over some of his views on this as well. So is it extremist for parents to be informed that their child has joined a Gay Straight Alliance, whether they're gay or straight? Some are saying it puts the child, I guess, in danger of being outed before their parents are ready to be informed that their child is, feels that they have a different sexual orientation or that they're transgendered or whatever the case is, right? So that's the concern from, I guess, David Egan. But I do like what Jason Kenney said here. He's saying the system should start with the presumption that most parents are caring, not with the presumption that they cannot be trusted. Does that make sense to most of us as parents? I think so. If I found out one of my children was, struggling with some of these things, would I be concerned? Yeah. Would I be abusive toward them if they? Of course not.
No.
The vast majority of parents would not. Now, here's part of my concern about this is because there's a much higher rate of suicide with young people when they're struggling with sexual orientation or transgenderism and so forth, gender identity. If one of those children were to commit suicide and the parents weren't informed by the school,
Exactly.
is there not a legal liability there? I would be so ticked off as a parent. I'd be coming after you. You would not want me on your tail.
Yes.
And I would come after you hard.
That is one of the first things that I wrote when the guidelines first came out. And on page 6 of the guidelines, the real red flag, so these are the guidelines that came out after the passage of Bill 10, which stated that parents should not be informed without the express permission of the child. And what I said was exactly what you're saying. What happens if a child has been in a gay-straight alliance for all of their high school years, they self-harm or, heaven forbid, commit suicide, and the parents were never brought into the conversation. They were never given an opportunity to care for their child, to provide counseling for the child. The issue with this situation is that the individuals like Isthmus and Minister Egan are not allowing for the importance of nuance in this conversation, right? What they're doing is they're presuming the worst of pretty much all parents, narrowing the support systems provided to these very vulnerable children, filling that vacuum with things like the Alberta GSA network. In the meantime, these children have had their support system so narrowed that even if they would feel safe in school, although I question that's possible, how can they possibly feel safe in their lives? Because their lives are not just school. Their lives are when they go home at the end of the day, when they go to bed at night, when they get up in the morning. And interestingly, one of the arguments that I heard recently was from Greg Clark, the leader of the Alberta Party.
Right.
He was on Danielle Smith, and he said one of the reasons parents shouldn't know is that there aren't counselors in schools anymore, which is illogical. His claim was, well, how do we do risk assessment? And we would reply, hang on, if you can't even do risk assessment, why are you counseling this incredibly vulnerable population on something as deep-seated as sexual orientation without proper counselors in the schools? If they aren't in there, who is? If that's your reason for not telling parents, imagine it the other way around. You tell parents. Counselors can be brought in, even from outside the school. Professionals can be brought in to support their children. And this isn't whether or not you are pro-LGBTQ or anti. As we've said, we don't take a stance on GSAs, on their existence. We don't take a stance on the particular belief system, the binary or fluid gender. But we do say, expand the resources for these children if they are truly as vulnerable, and I believe they are, as the government and Isthmus claims. Why is there's this desperate attempt to shut everybody out of these children's lives? We should be expanding, especially if there's not counseling in schools, to ensure. So the priority should be mediation. The priority should be helping children as the first point to communicate these issues with parents. And if there is a risk, there are already support systems legally binding in schools that you can involve. And you should be identifying that, because why are you sending children home to unsafe homes anyways, if that's truly the problem?
Exactly. Okay. Let's take a phone call from Michelle. Hi, Michelle. You're on the air here with Teresa Ng and Donna Trimble. Go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to expand on one of the comments that Donna Trimble just said. I'm in support of the concerned parents of SD 76 in Medicine Hat. And to put to Jason Kenney's views that they were being called extremists, I think that traditionally the view of having a parent being the guardian concerning their kids, that's pretty much been traditional. They are responsible for their children, and the fact that school systems and school boards trustees are taking that authority away with not allowing them to be involved in some feedback and a good rapport or facilitate conversation concerning policy changes is a little unnerving. And one of the things I did also want to say, too, is, again, with what Donna was saying, is the government themselves have made this an LGBTQ issue. Nobody has said that anybody is against anyone that is LGBTQ. I know many people. I have people in my circle. They are loving, adoring parents of their children, and they belong to that community. And I think what sometimes, because the government has pitted two groups against each other, they sat back and watched and had a good laugh over it. And what I think the LGBTQ community doesn't realize is that this legislation and the things that they are popping into the School Act will also take away their rights. I mean, the government is no respecter of persons when it comes to wanting to take away guardianship of children. So I just encourage the LGBTQ community to stand up, to really go in and read that School Act, because it affects you. And we're in support of you also having parental rights and guardianship of your children. And I just want to thank you guys so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for Michelle, just adding a different perspective on this here as well.
And I would add that there are even families, and I know families, and we've been contacted by families that either the parents are LGBTQ or the children are identifying that way. They even have a difference of opinion as to what the approach should be for their own children, whether it should be one-on-one counseling, whether it should be clubs. I had a parent tell me, sometimes these clubs, they can actually sort of hyper-focus on the sexual aspects and ignore that my child is a whole person. And that really worries me, because I want my child to remember that they are wonderful and they have all these wonderful things about them, and they're not just their sexual identity. And this was a parent of a child impacted by this. So even parents with children that are LGBTQ affected by this, totally supportive, are not happy with this narrowing of resources.
Makes sense,
And actually, I think that the point raised by Michelle is excellent. I had a person sign a petition that I did, and she specifically highlighted the fact that her daughter is transgender, and she moved from British Columbia because of this happening there. She came to Alberta thinking it was better. And she is so against this because her daughter struggled in the school in British Columbia as a transgender child, and the parent was never informed. And her daughter was depressed and was self-harming, and she didn't know. And she was so upset because she wants to be part of her child's life. And then she comes to Alberta, and guess what? And now she's fighting it here too. And it's actually, I wanted to highlight also the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms.
Yes, lawyer John Carpe.
They have just published within the last couple of days this Protecting Children, Protecting Families. And it talks about the legal rights of parents to be fully informed on all matters regarding their children's education. That will be up on the Parent Choice website very soon.
In fact, they have a meeting actually tomorrow.
Yes.
I saw
Friday
that here.
night.
I did actually mark it down somewhere if I could find it here.
Yes.
In fact, yes. Okay, this would be Friday, April 21st, 7:30 till 9:30. This is in Calgary at boy, if I can pronounce this, it's their Francophone Community Center, right, which is called La Cité des Rocheuses. If I'm anywhere close to that, it's near the Currie Barracks. It's the Francophone Community Center there. And anyway, if you go to the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, or Google John Carpe, or go to your website, I imagine it's probably on there as well. So,
And it's about these issues, and this paper's excellent.
Because I'm just going back to your comment about the when David Eggen called Jason Kenney extremist. And I want to highlight the fact that this is not an opinion issue. This is actually a legal issue. And when David Eggen is saying things like he did a couple of weeks ago, he sent an email to all the school boards saying that you should not inform parents unequivocally. He said you should not, and definitively. He is actually breaking, and this document does an amazing job explaining that. He's breaking laws about
Really?
like the Family Law Act.
Wow.
This document, it's an 8-page document. Every single politician, every single parent should read this document to understand that this isn't an opinion issue. This is an actual
Legal
stripping,
issue.
a stripping of parental authority, a parental legal authority that has been granted to us. But the thing is with these rights that parents have, if you don't advocate for them, and if you don't fight for them, you lose them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This
And-
is so key again. We've got to get informed and get involved. Again, you've got 3 things that people can and really should do, in my opinion. Again, if you go to informedalbertans.wordpress.com. So informedalbertans.wordpress.com. Again, you sign the petition there, okay? Very simple to do that, obviously. And then it takes maybe a slightly bit longer, but just a very, 2-paragraph letter is fine. Write a letter. Send it to Teresa, not to the government, because she'll pass it on to all the various parts of government and to save you the postage, that make sure everybody gets it. And then tell others on social media. There's a 1-page summary you have on your website. Just print it off, take it along to your church, take it along again to whatever community group you're involved with, where there's parents that are concerned. And if enough parents speak up, we can actually change this. I do believe that.
And I remind everyone that when the guidelines first came out, Minister Egan sent a letter to concerned parents specifically around parental notification, and he said, don't worry, the guidelines are, quote unquote, not legally binding. We always knew that the possibility of that right to be informed could be stripped in the future. That letter to all of the school boards stated, don't inform parents, but he has also stated that he's looking at codifying the circumvention of parents in schools in law.
So in other words, he's
So
looking
he's
now
talking
at,
about stripping these
yeah.
rights we already
So he's saying,
have.
don't worry, but now he's saying...
Now he's completely
maybe you
flipped
should
and he's
worry
saying,
because we are,
actually, this
I'm
was-
thinking about actually making this law.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be bad law in my view. Donna, you're on the air with, again, Teresa Ng and Donna Trimble. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hi. Go ahead, Donna.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Has anybody thought to ask the minister how he can take these rights away from parents, but parents legally are still expected to support financially?
Well,
It's
yeah.
very interesting. That's actually something that one of our wonderful board members, says quite often. She says they're basically removing the guardianship of children, because this is literally the psychological care of children. They're removing the right to be the proper parent and guardian of children, but they're not taking on any of the responsibilities
Yeah, exactly.
of taking care
Right.
of children. And that's a pretty scary situation. I also think that we need to talk about why we've diminished the resources available to schools that are valid professional resources, the counselors, the properly trained psychologists. Why are teachers being given the responsibility to not only care for their own families, teachers are parents too, but they're being given the responsibility now to take care of 30 children in a very intimate way
Well,
around sexual orientation.
Yeah.
I want people to realize, like, some of these school board policies, for example, the school board policies for the Calgary Board of Education, actually coerce teachers into keeping secrets of one-on-one conversations with children around sexual orientation, even from one another within the school. They're not supposed to share that with other staff members, let alone with the parents, according to the school board
Which isolates
policies.
the child even more, right?
Which is
So- Yeah,
not
doesn't
fair to
make sense.
teachers, and I would like to ask teachers. I mean, I realize it's difficult to stand up, but they are being put in a very legally precarious position, because what if something happens to a child
Yeah.
that's been having these intimate
Yeah.
conversations with them for months,
Yeah.
and they never told?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how concerned are we really about
Yeah.
the child, or is this more of an ideological battle, that sort of thing? So, okay, Donna, anything else you want to add to that, Donna?
No, I just think it's
Okay.
pretty ironic
Yeah,
that
that's
they would be thinking that they could take away those rights and yet still expect the parents to fork out all the money that it takes to raise a
Very
child.
good point, Don. I hope you go to these websites and write the letters, sign the petitions. Angel says parents should know what is being taught to their children. Those that have nothing to hide should hide nothing. When the people that are changing the school policies refuse to inform the parents where they're getting their policies from, what does that say about those legislators? What truths are they afraid of getting out? Angel, that's exactly the point you guys were making here as well. Parents should be informed. If there's nothing to hide, should be informed who's rewriting the curriculum, et cetera. And again, I know GSAs are being portrayed as anti-bullying networks. Well, I've seen the stats, and some kids do get bullied about their sexual orientation and so forth, but it's nowhere near the top. It's far more to deal with body size, image, race, those kinds of things. That's what typically kids get bullied about. It's really interesting. On that GSA network, I clicked on myths, for example, and it takes you actually from that government website to the Altview Foundation mission. Their mission statement is to build diverse pro-queer, pro-trans communities in Alberta through advocacy, education, empowerment, collaboration, and the arts. And it has some other stats there. It goes, myths, right? Well, they're saying the truth is studies show LGBT, people in Canada, 10 to 14% of the population. I said, really? That's truth? Well, I thought I'll look up truth. I went to Stats Canada. It says 1.7% gay, lesbian, and 1.3% bisexual. So who are you going to trust? This is being fed onto our kids. This is truth. Ignore Stats Canada. And oddly enough, they didn't cite any sources to back up their claims.
Well, and that would be what I've been saying even since I started my blog with the guidelines coming out. If this is truly about protecting vulnerable kids, then why are we not having conversations about increasing funding for counseling, counselors in schools? Because I was a teacher before I became a stay-at-home mom. And even in just the 10 years I was in the system, when I started to when I went to be home with my kids, there was a tremendous difference in the amount of supports that were available in terms of counseling. Even when it came to ELL kids being put in school, we used to have resource people who would work with
and
them.
I have to apologize, I've got to leave it there because I'm running out of time.
Right, okay, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we could be on for 2 shows in a row here, but I want to put a plug in for your websites here as well. Again,